You're listening to the Angry Designer Podcast, where we help frustrated graphic designers crush the industry chaos, ditch the social BS, and build badass, rewarding careers that actually pay. Now powered by Wix Studio. Oh, if anybody cares, we're still drinking some of that Bowmore Black. This bottle is just, it's such a treat. It's such a treat. Oh, I'm digging this.
It's very nice. And you have your own personal stash at home, too, you were saying.
Well, because again, we're still, neglected of bourbon.
Yeah.
I want my damn bourbon and can't. So I'm slowly starting to stupid bullshit.
Yeah, it's a bullshit.
So other things people could do to get their mind off of this kind of malarkey that we're dealing with is potentially art.
Oh, a lot of people do that. When
Yes,
COVID, I bet you that kind of went up.
Went through the roof,
yeah,
right?
All kinds of crafts.
I got a daughter, and she had like that she wanted to convert our iPad this weekend into her drawing tablet.
Oh,
so we got like the pen, the pencil. It's really cool.
Nice.
And I suck. I give art, artist is one of those things. Being an artist is one of those things that you always think it's a romantic thing that you think, long-term, it'd be great to retire and just paint paintings as a retired old, gray-haired person, looking on some countryside or whatever. It's this funny view. And so I envy artists who can do it their whole lives. But man, I have been a designer so long. Like it's the only thing I know how to do.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
I'm a designer.
Yeah.
And oddly, I can cartoon.
Well, you can cartoon.
I can do doodles and cartoons.
Okay.
That's, I got 4 kids, so you have to entertain them one way.
Yeah, you have to kind of
I'll draw cartoons. Not too bad at that. But I mean, again, it's like I envy people like James Victoria who can keep kind of flipping, and he can do commercial work, but he's still very much an artist.
Yeah.
And there's so many artists that we've met and then the heroes I have, but man, I suck. It's a hard way of going about it. I think back to some of the shit, even at a young age. I remember being like in grade 8. Okay. And we had to draw an athlete. It was arts class. We had to draw an athlete doing something. And I was like, okay, well, I wanted to do a snowboarder because that was my thing. But I couldn't just do a snowboarder. I had to do a snowboarder in the air. At the bottom of his snowboard, I baked a logo, a big salamander, and I made this brand called Alexander Salamander. I gave it a headline. I created a logo, and I'm like in grade 8 because again, even then I wasn't just thinking art.
An artist. Yeah.
So it's such a different, and so it's hard for me to back up and to think more like an artist and to remove the business side. Again, I see something, first thing that goes to my mind is, how do we turn that into a business?
Yeah.
Or how can we scale this? And how do we make this even better? It's a sickness, I tell you. But this episode, because was it last week or 2 weeks ago, we did an episode about how the artist mindset is, fucking
poisoning
over.
you.
Yeah, it is. And it got a lot of reaction. A lot of people got pissed and ruffled over it. Well, because they're like, oh, a designer can be an artist. And I'm like, there's so,
maybe
it's like saying a car can be a motorcycle. Well, they're both modes of transportation.
They get you the same thing,
but
very different animals,
but they are very different.
Yes.
And that's, and it's not saying that design can't be beautiful, right? Because it is.
Yeah.
It's totally beautiful. And when it's done well, it looks fantastic and it performs fantastic, right? But I think that's like the difference that people need to keep realizing. Like there are some huge differences between the two. And so that, we focused on the whole artist mindset. And I thought, for this episode, let's focus on the designer mindset, how to embrace an actual designer mindset. Because I've come to the conclusion that, if I'm going to be old and gray with an art painting easel, looking out at a field, it's probably going to have words on it like
Alexander Salamander.
Salamander. It's true, right? I've succumbed to that. But there's so much to this, right? Like, again, when you're a designer, right? I mean, when you embrace the whole idea that you're a designer, one thing that happens is you don't take feedback personally anymore, right? And it's true. I mean, we talked that whole episode. We talked because I got pissy about some feedback and I took it personally. But the thing is, if you genuinely embrace being a designer, okay, it's not personal because what you're creating isn't a personal expression of yourself.
Right.
And they may not like your execution or the direction you went with it, but in no way is it any sort of a personal attack on you. Right. Whereas an artist, this is
a different animal. Yeah.
It's a different animal, right? Yeah. Because for an artist, it comes from within what you're creating. Right. Where for a designer, it's not necessarily about a feeling, but it's more a function of it. And that's a big difference.
I always look at it like if someone tells you as a design, it sucks. I don't like that. That means there's no mass appeal to it, which is exactly what we want.
You're right.
So I take that as, thank you. That is good feedback.
Right.
I would much rather know something that people are going to love across the board.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's another thing, right? Designers take feedback. Okay. They take it to improve what they're doing, to improve that. Can you imagine an artist halfway through a painting, somebody comes up and is like, I think it needs to be a little bit more blue.
Is that the color you're going to go with?
Right. Like, again, it would be shit where, for us, we thrive on iterations.
That's good.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's part of our process. Right. If you start embracing the designer mindset, you can charge more. Duh. Right. Because again, it's, how many times do people always use the crutch of, I'm an artist, I'm a creative, I can't charge for it. And it's like, no, you're not thinking about this as, an actual job. You're taking this, and that's not what we do. Designers get paid because we're not creating things because they come from within.
Right.
We're creating things to solve a problem for the customer. Well, now, if it's solving a problem, something that's tangible, the customer can see value in that and will pay for that.
Exactly.
Big difference.
Exactly.
Right?
And pay again for that.
And pay again
if they,
on. Ideally on a retainer basis.
Yes, exactly.
So before we get into this a little bit, too much, I just want to do a quick shout out. Guys, we've got an awesome newsletter that I don't promote enough. It's called Anger Management for Designers. We're giving you tips every week, once a week. That's all it is. We give you tips. We got a comic in there. We've got, AI prompts in there. Honestly, and it's more of this, just an email forward. Yeah. So please, you can sign up on that on our socials. It's on our website, wherever you go. Okay. It's there. Yeah. Okay. Anger Management for Designers. All right. Nice. Let's get on with this.
All right.
As a designer, you kind of break away from revision hell.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not to say that, you're not going to get revisions on your job.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Okay. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
But again, we set the direction of, what it is that we're creating, right? We have reasons for choosing what we are, okay? Versus, okay, creating revisions based on something completely aesthetic. Because if you're an artist and you create something only because it looks good and everything you chose on there is because, it wasn't because it was on brand. It wasn't because it was on target. It wasn't because it was for the end user. You're just creating it because it's cool.
Just because it's awesome. Yeah.
It's that would create like creatively led projects have the worst revision cycles.
Yeah.
But as a designer, your projects are always strategically led. And because they're strategically led, okay, you've got a process to put everything, all your ducks in order.
Right.
In order to achieve that goal. So your revisions, although we all get revisions from customers, they're generally business related. They're basically focused on it's never about just.
It's never a left turn. Rarely a left turn.
Right?
Do you know what I mean? Like
you've missed the mark if it was.
Really, sure. You really have. Yeah. It's more of a, whoa, I'm getting close to the edge here. Now I got to get back into the middle of the road kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting.
And then I think, a big, benefit of thinking like a designer, especially long-term. Okay. And I'm not saying that this is a blanket case for all artists, but as a designer, you're taken a lot more seriously.
Yeah.
Okay. When someone like Michael Beirut walks into a place like Google, okay, people stop, listen, right? Because he speaks about UX, he speaks about design principles, right? Everything is a why we do this versus if someone like Cause was to go into Google. Don't get me wrong. Everybody would fawn over the guy. He's fucking coolest artist ever.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't ask him for business advice. And that's what I mean by
Right.
it's a whole, it's cool factor, almost celebrity like, but again, they're not flocking to Brad Pitt on, what should their next investment be either. I was going to say DeLonghi coffee makers, right? So, I mean, there are definitely benefits from embracing more of a designer mindset versus, the art. And that's why I thought this was a good episode because, there's no question through and through, I'm a designer. I'm trying to be an artist and it's not working.
You need a brief for your art.
A what?
A brief.
What the hell is
a creative brief? Yes. This is why we can't do this anymore.
Because as a designer, we thrive in constraints.
You give me a pencil and do whatever you want. I'm like, I don't know.
And you know what? I'm so used to working in constraints. I need that. If somebody was to come up to me and be like, no, you can only do art with using black and white charcoal, and it has to be based on a skateboard theme at nighttime on this guy, then I'd be like, okay, let me try something.
Yeah.
But because it's this whole open, scary world, I don't fucking know where to start.
Yeah, I know.
Like oddly, I keep leaning towards fonts. And I keep looking, I look to stuff like our buddy James Victoria, and I'm like, well, that feels right.
Yeah.
Because it's what I know. It's graphic design, right?
Yes.
But again, so that's the thing. I feel I would excel under constraints.
Yep.
Where as an artist, I think is more open and vivid. So that's a huge difference between the two, right?
Yeah.
Other differences, right? Designers always make things for other people. Okay, always
true.
Our whole existence is thinking about other people first.
Right.
Where let's face it, artists, that whole world is opposite. It's all about making things for themselves and being expressive, and it doesn't mean it doesn't have to have a purpose.
It's true. Yeah,
you can create something for a cause, for a reason. A political statement, education statement, whatever. Right.
Yeah. There's an. I like it, but I don't give a fuck if you do.
Right.
That's it, right? Yeah.
So, again, very big difference there, right?
Mm-hmm.
We tend to look for real problems to solve. Okay. Where let's face it, artists don't really, care about, problems unless it's like, famine or something and they're creating something to raise awareness. But that's not necessarily, representative of all artists.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So maybe we're a little bit of generalizing here, right?
Yeah.
But, when it comes to design, you can be like, a project is done, okay, when it actually works and does what you've designed it for.
Exactly.
Where an artist is done when they say they're done. Okay, I'm done. One more splotch of paint and that's it. Right? Like, again, it's a very different kind of mindset, or, inspiration versus, we look for objectives, right? Like, again, we're two different worlds.
Yeah.
And, being a designer, there's definitely the advantages of being a designer, just in my opinion, are just, they're endless, mainly because we get paid.
That's a big deal. But to me, it's the mass appeal. That's what I like. If you think of, I don't know, the most famous painting in the world versus the Apple logo. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's such a...
Think about that. Compare it.
Right. Like, maybe the Mona Lisa. I don't know. The Mona Lisa.
But let's compare the two.
What's more ubiquitous? What's more people are more aware of?
It's funny because which is valued more? I guarantee you there's a higher dollar figure associated to the Apple logo than there is to the Mona Lisa.
Well, it's $1 trillion company.
But even the logo itself, recently there was something that came out and it was... Oddly enough, somebody had actually bought the rights to the Commodore 64, Commodore Company. I thought it was great.
Oh, shit.
But in watching that, they actually put a value on the Apple logo itself, like an actual value. And it was close to $1 billion. Like what that logo, like, like the physical value of that.
Yeah.
And as much as the Mona Lisa is worth, I don't think it's worth $1 billion, So, that's an interesting take.
To me, I think that's sexier than, but you know what I mean? But it's like
100%
because there's that simplistic, like you can get detailed right down to shit with the artists, right?
Absolutely.
Whereas we are not allowed that. And it's kind of frowned upon to have see the original Apple logo. Imagine trying to pass that off today.
Yeah, no, that's not going to work. And that's only worth about $0.25.
Exactly.
But you're absolutely right. There's a mass appeal to what it is that we do.
That's right.
And it reaches people. And, you know, and how we create things to make people act.
Yes.
And that's different.
Yes.
Where art generally only tries to make people feel something, feel what the artist wants them to feel.
Right.
Sometimes it works.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Sometimes people cringe or frown. Sometimes they're like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I think very, very rarely do they feel what the artist feels.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is interesting because that's why you got curators explaining the art. And once they explain it, people are like, oh, I get it.
Whereas you see an Apple logo, you get it.
Yeah. Well,
right off
and again,
the bat.
well, if we do our job right, people automatically act and they get it. They're persuaded to do something.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So there is, you know, that's a huge difference. There are definitely some core traits, you know, for being a designer that I think, you know, to being a designer, embracing this kind of mindset, right? And, you know, it's things like, you know, empathy, right? What we do, again, is always for the end user. Mm-hmm. It's not about our own ego.
Right.
Okay. It's not what we like. It's not necessarily about our personal taste. Not to say that certain people won't choose certain designers over others for their taste.
Yeah.
But it's still that designer's only good if they can execute against an objective. Mm-hmm. Okay. So again, it's not necessarily about what we like and our personal, you know, taste, but about what they need in the end. Okay. Steve Jobs had a quote, and it was, design isn't about what it looks, but how it works. So again, it is. Yeah. And it's, again, that whole company excelled when they came back and they took design seriously. When Steve Jobs came back and brought design for the end user. Yeah. So again, there's a huge trait, right? Another trait is that designers put strategy over style. Okay. And again, we never start with what looks cool. Mm-hmm. Okay. Because that's not what this is about. We always start with the end goal. What is it that they're trying to achieve? Right. Okay. What is it? You know, we never think about actually, you know, how great something's going to look. That's just the byproduct. Yeah. And the better it works, the better something looks, because all of a sudden it's just like, wow, that was the best fucking website ever. Yeah. Because it actually worked for once, right? Yeah. So again, we tend to think about, you know, the end result and what that goal is, right? Because again, being a designer means everything that we should do is always led with strategy first. Yeah. Okay. Strategy first, then design comes later. Right. Okay. Yeah. Massimo Vignelli had a great quote about this. Okay. He said, the correct relationship between design and art is that design is utilitarian and art is not. And this is Massimo Vignelli, okay? So this is one, and again, it perfectly describes what it is that we do as designers, right?
Design for the people.
Yeah, it's exactly it, dude. Oh,
holy shit.
That's actually really cool. That'd be a good company. That'd be a cool name, actually.
Yeah, that would be.
Ooh. All right. Another core trait, you know, of having a designer mindset, okay, is we've already talked about this. It's within your constraints, you will find creativity.
Yes.
Okay. You purposely try to limit yourself more and more and more in order to achieve a better product in the end, right? Because again, you start taking away things if you have to. You start, you know, reducing your timeline. Yep. You start limiting your fonts, limiting your colors, and that's where you seek true creativity. Okay. Again, the worst thing you can tell a designer is do whatever you want. Do whatever. I hate that. This comes down to something called Parkinson's law. Okay. And it's a UX law, which UX came from. Don't care what you say. But anyway, Parkinson's law says work expands to fill the time available. Okay. Great design happens when time and space are limited. Okay, so it's right there. Yes. It's a law. It's Parkinson's law. So you know that shit's legit.
The less time you have, the better
always
it is.
Always.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. And I mean, face it, we do it to ourselves unknowingly.
We're terrible.
Right? If I tell you I need something next Friday, you're not going to start till Wednesday.
No.
If I'm lucky. I know how you work, Sean.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, designer mindset. Okay. We iterate. We don't worship what we created. Okay. The first draft is never the final product. Okay. Yeah. Very rarely do you create something so good. Customers like, yeah, wow, good. It's good to go.
Yeah.
It has happened.
And I'm always concerned when I have to reach out to people. It's like,
I'd be like,
did this
sure.
work? Are you using this?
They're like, yeah,
They're like, yeah, it's fine. It's
but
great.
it's true, right? Like versioning fast, and getting different iterations of what it is that you create is how we get to that place.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Which is a huge difference. And it's okay. I'm a big believer of sending customers work earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. Testing it out, getting feedback earlier. And, obviously customers can't visualize like we do.
Yes.
Okay. And that's something that, designers have to realize, unfortunately. But you get them stuff earlier instead of trying to perfect it, right? They're going to get it back, get real world results. Yep. And then you keep iterating and iterating until you get that final product, right?
Yes. Yep.
Versioning faster and improves faster, okay?
Yep.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
All right, designers, let's cut the bull. How many times have you had a killer website design only to watch it fall apart because of code or developer telling you no? Or maybe you've held back from web design altogether thinking it's just too complicated and too technical or totally out of your wheelhouse. Either way, it's time for a change. Wix Studio is designed for designers, removing the barriers that limits your designs. Whether you're tired of developers watering down your ideas or too intimidated by the technical side of web, Wix Studio puts the creative power back in your hands. No code required. With a drag and drop interface that feels designer intuitive, plus no code animations and even AI powered tools, you can create fully custom websites that match your vision. Every pixel, every detail. And if you're worried about the learning curve, don't be. Wix Studio is designed to feel as intuitive as your favorite design tools. Some designers here even say more so. That means you can jump right in and focus on what you do best, designing badass, brand-aligned websites that'll take your business to the next level. So whether you've had enough of developers holding you back or you're ready to finally step into web design, check out wixstudio.com and take control. That's wixstudio.com. Go and take back web design for graphic designers.
Paula Shure had a really good quote for this, okay? She said, you have to get bad in order to get good.
Oh,
isn't that cool?
Shit.
So this isn't just an angry designer thing, I'm telling you.
So as you suck, you realize you're getting better as you kind of go along.
And you keep shifting, right? You're like, I'm going to put a blue button on there. And sorry, a button's just a simple, bad example, but I'm saying blue button doesn't work.
Yeah.
Okay, well then let's change it to red. Oh shit, all
Boom,
of a sudden there's an increase.
Right.
Boom, exactly, right? So you have to get to bad before you know how good you can get to, right?
Interesting.
That's a really cool way of thinking about it, right?
Yeah, that's heavy.
And a designer mindset is about communicating, not decorating.
Right.
Okay. Design is the art of persuasion. Okay. I love that. Okay. It's not about style points. Okay. And the thing is, what we do, everything a designer does has some sort of action associated to it. Okay. And that's what people need to realize. If you're a designer, it isn't about making something look pretty.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what art's for. Okay.
Yeah.
Are the things that we create have to do something, whether it's, generate a lead, whether it's get people through the door, whether it's, introduce a whole new brand or a whole new market. There is something intentful that we have to create. And that's the difference. That's how everything we do is supposed to communicate, even if it's just a beautiful brand poster with the smallest logo, or maybe even just like, the product shot, with the logo on the product. But again, even brand awareness ads have to communicate the brand.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So again, there's always some sort of persuasion aspect to everything we do.
I like that.
Dieter Ram said, good design is as little design as possible. Right? And this is true, right?
Holy
we know this, right?
Shit.
What
yes.
often looks, easy is really complicated.
It's very
to
hard
achieve.
Yes. Yeah.
Really though, design really is about, persuasion.
Yeah.
It's not about making things look pretty, okay? And I think that's why I have always said that, like designers don't have to worry about AI. Okay, we don't have anything to fear about it.
No.
I personally still feel that AI was created for
designers.
fucking designers, right?
Yeah.
Because again, AI might generate the content. It might generate things that look good. Okay. And do it really quick and do it tirelessly and not, and not hate us or cry to us about it. Right. It'll do that. But the thing is, it still needs our input.
Yes.
Okay. It still needs, the problem we're trying to achieve, right? That prompt would have to be like very descriptive about what the goals are. Let's find the problems. It's our tool.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's how we use it.
Right.
Artists, on the other hand, I can see why they get really pissed off about it. Like artists fucking go crazy about AI, right?
Oh yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
Right. And at first I was like, guys, just stop complaining, whatever. Right. Like, yeah, it took artists, they used, artist examples, to create these learning language models. And I get it. Right. But the reason I think why they're pissed off about it is because artists see what they do, okay, as a direct extension of who they are, of themselves, right? Their emotions, their style, their tone, right? So when AI like scrapes and replicates, their shit, their style, for inspiration, right? They feel like it's plagiarism.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is why, for them, they get so pissed and irate about it, you know?
Yeah.
And I get that after going through this whole concept and realizing the differences between the two, right?
Yeah.
They loathe AI because it attacks their identity. It attacks who they are and replicates it without any feelings.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, that would be the end of the world for an artist. Okay. Where, designers, well, shit, we take AI, we fucking embrace it open arms, or we should, because it enhances what we do.
Yeah.
Right. This is it superpowers our abilities, because our abilities aren't just in that final end product. Okay, and that's what people need to remember. It's the process to get to there.
Right.
And that's the part that, sure, AI probably could do if people had enough information to prompt it properly, to put it in place, to add all those elements in there. Yeah. But let's face it, the customer's not going to do that. The customer has no idea what to pull in. They have their own shit to do in their business.
This is true.
Right? They got their, just because they can add, does that mean they're going to do their fucking accounting? I can use a calculator, so I don't hire my accountants.
I don't need you guys.
I don't need you. Like, stop being so stupid. Okay, this is not, the clients don't have an interest. They might think it's cool. They might think it's a toy. Yeah. But then they're going to get bored and realize there's everything else that they got to fucking do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Real designers, they realize that AI is a tool, right? Because, it can create, it can iterate, right? But it can't do that extra step, the pre-step to those two things, which is what we do, which is why we've always got a place, okay?
Yep.
We've always got a place, and AI will just be our tool and just superpower everything that we do, okay?
Yep.
And customers will need us to keep coming back over and over and over, right?
Yep.
If AI actually makes you feel irreplaceable, then your mindset is of an artist. It's not of a designer. Okay. So you're already thinking of yourself in the wrong way, in my opinion. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's heavy. Yeah, we got to embrace that shit. But I would be a little pissed off if I was an artist and somebody was cranking out stuff, AI of mine.
It absolutely can. But one thing that, you want a little bit?
Sure.
One thing though, that I think artists need to realize is, I could buy a print from somebody that, I saw it at Fan Expo or something, right? Or, like an original print, or I can photocopy my own. But if I'm going to go and AI generate my own version of it, I'm not the customer who's going to pay for that print.
Right.
And they won't make a penny off me anyway.
Right.
They make a penny off people who appreciate the artist, the person behind the print, the person who made the print. That's why everything that I own from an artist has to be signed.
Yeah.
So if somebody's going to rip off their shit, well, you know what? They were never a customer of theirs anyway. They obviously appreciated that artist's style so much. Yeah. They're trying to replicate it themselves.
Yes.
Okay. They were never going to buy from them anyway.
Right. So it's almost a flattery.
Well, I think they need to realize that, right? Because again, if somebody's going to be generating that shit, that's the same person that would probably take their iPhone and snap a picture of a piece of art at a museum and then print it out themselves and hang it on their fucking wall. Artists, they don't get pissed off about that. Right, so don't,
true. That's true. That is a good point.
Yeah.
Interesting. I never looked at it that way.
So all in all, I think what I'm saying is that there's a huge difference between the way designers think and the way artists think.
Yeah.
And if people want to embrace a designer's mindset, okay, a little bit more, our process, how we go about things, right? I've got a small list here, like 6 things that I think that we should do, what people should do to embrace more of how we think, towards our customers, towards our work, towards our jobs.
Yeah.
And I think that this will give people a really good, solid understanding of how to actually get to that next step.
Nice.
Right? Like number 1, always designers have to start with the why. Always with the why, okay? You have to ask, what is the problem that we're here to solve today, okay?
Right.
We don't even pick up, a mouse. We don't open up Adobe in any way. We don't do anything until we start digging for that problem. Why is it that you want a brochure? I'm here because you want a brochure, but why?
Yeah.
What's wrong with your website? Like, what is the problem? And this is where you have to dig, right? You don't want to create a brochure because we need a brochure. We want you to build a brochure because we're going to a trade show and we want to give it to people so we can get leads.
Yeah.
So lead generation is the problem. And now our brochure has to create that. And then while you're there, upsell them, create a contest, create something else, get other ways to find them leads. The problem is leads.
Yeah.
The brochure is just one of many ways to get them, right?
Yeah.
Same with the logo, same with websites, right? You have to find out first and foremost what the why is in every ask that a customer has. And if you just take that ask and go away and design, artist mindset.
Yeah, because you're taking this, you're getting it all black, big metal kind of letters and stuff like that, and it's for a bridal show.
Right. A little wrong there.
I should have asked that question in the beginning. Damn it.
If you just jump to the creative.
I know. You've got to ask these questions.
And guess what? AI is coming for your job. AI is coming for you.
Big time.
Okay, number 2. Okay, the next step. You have to define who you're designing for. So you know the problem. You know the problem that you have to solve. You've asked enough questions. You've dug deep. Now you have to define who it is that you're designing this for, okay? Yeah. You got to figure out who that end user is, not who your customer is. Okay, that's irrelevant in all fairness, other than the fact that they cut the check and, they're going to give you more work in the future. But in all fairness, during this process, they are irrelevant.
Yeah.
It is their customer that you need to obsess over. You need to think, who are they? What's their problems? What do they like? What do they hate? What scares them at night? What kind of food do they like? Right? And as ridiculous as this sounds, these are all questions that, about that end person, you need to know in order to create something that's going to motivate those people. Okay. So again, if you want to, reach people who, hate chocolate, well, you don't want to have a chocolate bar in the back corner or that person in your ad holding a chocolate in any which way, shape, or form. Do you know what I mean? And it sounds ridiculous, but it is so true.
Yeah.
Right? Because that would turn people off. Yeah. And that little thing would make a huge difference.
Yeah, big time.
All right. Number 3, you got to clarify, okay, with your customer, what success looks like for this project.
That's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know what the problem is. Okay. I know who the customers are. So if I do my job right, what does success look like for you?
Right,
okay.
Exactly.
How do we know that what I created works? Okay. And nobody asks that because they're scared to ask that. But in order to design something that's going to perform for the customer, you got to figure out what is it that you want to see happen. Do you want signups on your website? Do you want people to give you a lead at a trade show? Do you want them to fill out a form? Do you just want to make them feel good about your brand?
Yeah.
Okay. You need to find out what success looks like. And if you can measure it, even better.
Even better. Yeah.
Even better.
Yeah, that's great.
So right off the bat, those are 3 things. And you haven't even started designing yet. You haven't even put pen to paper and started getting creative. Okay. And people don't realize there is so much work to do ahead of time in order to create something that will persuade people to do what the intent is. Okay.
Yeah.
Then number 4. Okay. Then you sketch ugly and you iterate fast. I'm not recommending, make all your characters look like mad characters, mad magazine characters. But, what I'm saying in this case is 3 basic, rough outlines is better than 1 nice polished one.
This is true. Yeah.
We wireframe everything.
Yeah.
Okay. We want to get things to them early so we can get feedback early and see if this is in the right direction and if it has a chance.
Right.
Okay. This at an early stage really is about quantity. It's not about quality of one specific piece. If you put all your heart and soul in that one concept, and for whatever reason you miss the mark on that, you're done.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You're done.
Exactly.
So again, worry about refining it later. Okay. The idea here is sketch and sketch fast and get it out there over and over and over. Okay.
Yep.
Number 5. Okay. Next thing you do, and this is actually from Paul Rand. You kill your darlings, as he would call it. Okay. So you're coming up with concepts, you're coming up with ideas, and be ruthless. You got to cut that shit. Don't defend don't defend something because it's cool looking.
Yeah.
Okay. If it doesn't work, if it doesn't meet the objective, no matter how cool it is, you got to table that for some other use. And I know that sucks to do because you're like, oh, this looks so great. I wish they'd pick it.
Yeah.
But that's for the wrong reasons. Right.
Yep.
If you were trying to create something that's going to persuade people to act, then you need to, you need to follow this formula and you can't be scared, to detach yourself from the layouts that they don't necessarily work. Okay. Because again, you've got to detach yourself from that ego part of this. Okay. And that's what people need to forget. You're a designer. Okay. So design for the end user and design to make something work, not to make something only look good.
Exactly.
That's an artist mindset.
Yep.
And then last but not least, when you present to the customer, you present with logic, not with emotion. And I can't stress this enough. Okay. You don't be like, oh, I chose this font face, this typeface because it's hot right now and I like it a lot. It's really cool. And I've given it to a couple of my customers and it's had great success. No, you need to be like, we chose this typeface because it's a serif typeface. And that ensues trust in people when they look at that. Serifs are often used in the financial industry. And so, this tie with your company makes you feel like you're credible and you're trustworthy. This is the logic. It's never about you.
It's not an emotional thing.
It's not an emotional thing. It's logic. And it's hard.
That's
it's
awesome.
Extremely hard for customers to contest logic. We chose blue because you're a tech company. Blue is a very popular tech company, and I get it. You want to try something different, so we'll throw pink in there as an accent color. Yeah. But blue is a good solid base, and it works, and that's what we need to work right now, right? Yeah. Never ever ever talk about you love how things look or you want to do something because they look cool or they're trending. It's never about you. It's you present with logic, and it's hard for them to. It'll always be hard for them to contest.
Yeah. Big time. Oh, that's
so. These are just 6, 6 basic ways just to get to that pitch.
Yeah.
Okay. Just to get to there. After that, you're designers. The process, and after this, it goes into revisions and this and that, and you've already got that in place. But if you want to develop a designer's mindset, okay, if you want better pay, if you want more respect, okay, you need to embrace having a more design-centric mindset in everything you do. Yeah. You got to stop thinking like an artist and stop, thinking with, feelings and emotions and presenting them that way. Yeah. Okay. And that's the problem, right? By thinking like a designer and acting like a designer and presenting like a designer. Okay. AI will never be able to replace you. Yes. Okay. AI will work alongside you. It'll be a tool, it'll be part of your arsenal, but you can't get replaced. Yeah. Okay. But if you think like an artist and you just design out of feelings and emotions and you're only focused on that end result, well, it's only a matter of time that, somebody's going to realize that there's an easy way to prompt your final product out for them.
Big time.
So, I think this is the right way for people to start thinking in their space.
Totally. Yes. Yeah,
this is really shitty.
This is good. I like that.
Well, and again, it's I think it's a mindset that needs to be embraced by more people. And it's a realization because once you start realizing what a designer actually does, you start realizing that AI won't affect us like some people think. Yeah. They might, replace certain elements of our job. It definitely makes certain parts of our job a hell of a lot easier and faster.
Does, yes.
Okay. But it can't replace us because it needs somebody to lead it. And if there's one thing we know, it's people. And if we know customers, okay, we know that they are not going to take it upon themselves to learn AI enough to prompt them a result. Okay. it's going to happen in little spurts.
Yeah,
People are going to be interested.
Some people will raise the bar a little bit.
A little bit. Some will
sure.
be more interested in it.
I go back to your point that you said earlier. They all have fucking jobs to do. They're not going to monkey around with this kind of stuff because it's as easy as it sounds to type some shit into it. It's not that. There's thousands or like tons and tons of revisions that you'll do.
Absolutely.
And tweaks and you know what I mean? Like, so it's not an easy thing.
It's not an easy thing.
Yeah.
And, again, and as good as it's getting, and it's going to get better and better and better.
Yep.
I still believe in the fact that, A, it was designed for, I still believe that AI was built for designers. I still truly believe that.
Cool.
And number two, I think it will always be alongside a designer. It will be like an intern.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't see it replacing everything we do. So the sooner designers realize that and take on this mindset, the better it's going to be. And I mean, again, you'll have nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
However, you guys do got to jump in on AI, but that's a whole other episode altogether.
Yeah.
Sweet.
We'll
Cool.
get it later. Yeah.
All
right. Nice.
Well, listen, I hope you guys liked what you got here. Please, by all means, if you've got anything to say, hit us up on our website, hit us up on our socials. We're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, all the places. Like, subscribe, forward us to everybody. And I have to remind everybody, we've got a kick-ass newsletter that you guys need to subscribe to. It's called Anger Management for Designers. And it's got topics. It's always got actionable items for help.
Cartoons.
We've got a cartoon in there now every week.
I love.
We've got some AI tips in there every week, and it's only once a week, and it's not going to bother you that much. So sign up for this shit.
Yeah,
all right?
Yeah, do it.
You can sign that up.
It's
in our socials. It's in our header. Just click on there. It's also on our website. So give it a sign up and let us know what you think about that.
Yeah, nice.
Cool.
All right,
everybody.
Woo.
My name is Massimo.
And my name is Sean.
Stay creative.
And stay angry.